They are busy trying to regulate the internet now, supposedly because it's for our national defense, or probably they're saying it's for the best interest of our children. But there are people who are out there fighting. Now, there's somebody I know who is used to this kind of name-calling, these kind of attacks, because he has been at the forefront here. For 5 years, he has broken the big stories that the media has not covered. Yeah, he has broken the stories of Acorn and of voter fraud and of problems with Planned Parenthood. So he has been here being that voice of journalism that is missing. That reminds me of why I taught journalism in the first place. We had something called the Canons of Journalism, ASNIs, Canons of Journalism from 1920-something, where now you have people devoted to the administration or big government or big business. The reporter is supposed to be devoted to the people, and is supposed to be the voice of the people, trying to stop big government, big business, and expose their corruption, expose their hypocrisy. And amazingly, I don't know how we were able to get it. I kind of think this is so cool. We have somebody here who is at the forefront of this effort. So I'd like to, without further ado, introduce fellow Rutgers alum. We were not in the same class, I don't think, probably a couple years difference. All right, the author of Breakthrough, which is for sale here today, and the founder of Project Veritas, Mr. James O'Keefe.
It's great to be here today. Thank you so much for having me, and I think we're just trying to get our video presentation working here, so I'll say a few words while we're working on that. I did graduate from Rutgers, 2006. And I'm not welcome back on campus, apparently. You'd think that they would have me back.
Either.
What's that?
And they don't feature you on the front page.
No, they actually wrote an op-ed in the Targum criticizing me many times.
I'm surprised.
And how many people have had a chance to read Breakthrough yet? Probably one or two, maybe. One of the first chapters in this book, I'm at Rutgers University, and the dean at Rutgers University, one of the first moments in my college career, she leans into me, I lean into her, she said, "Now James, you're doing all this muckraking journalism stuff on campus. That's not really the way it should be done. We shouldn't be challenging these people and getting in their face. That's not what a respectable journalist does."
Yeah.
And that was kind of my first lesson in soft tyranny at Rutgers University. We started out doing these viral videos. And one of the first videos we actually did was we documented the abuses on campus with professors at Rutgers University, and found that the number of people who, this was in 2004, who voted for John Kerry, 52,000 to 1 was the ratio at Rutgers University. And Paul Robeson was a famous alumnus, and he got the Stalin Peace Prize. So that was the type of ideological diversity you'd find under Paul Robeson's beloved Soviet Union there at Rutgers University. So we started making videotaped sessions where we'd go into the dean's office, we'd go into these professors' offices, and we'd make demands. And one of the first demands we made is we tried to ban Lucky Charms, the breakfast cereal, on the grounds it's racist against Irish people. And we put these people into a situation where they're bound to lose either way, because if, on one hand, if they remove the cereal, then they're obviously ridiculous. And on the other hand, if they don't take your complaint of the campus speech code seriously, then they're in violation of their own campus speech code. So I think we have a video here. This is Project Veritas. This is our nonprofit we started in 2010. And I'm going to pull up this video we have of the Lucky Charms incident. Let's see here. Here we go. One of the first videos we ever did. It's in the book Breakthrough. I'm sure you'll find this thoroughly entertaining.
I'm a personal advisor to James and Natalie here. And basically, they have had some unpleasant, uncomfortable experiences at some of the dining halls. And basically, if you want.
Basically wanted to bring a matter to your concern that we noticed that, your at the dining halls here, Rutgers serve Lucky Charms, and we think that this promotes negative stereotypes of Irish Americans, and we don't think it's acceptable in an academic setting, especially one of higher learning. And we brought a box for you to look at here, and there's what appears to be an Irish American on the front cover, and he's portrayed as a little green cladded gnome huckster, and we think this underlines the importance and severity of St. Patrick's Day, especially during the month of March. So basically what we're trying to do is appeal to...
Can you tell me that again? You feel that he's portrayed as a...
I think he's portrayed as a little green cladded gnome. And this is really, as you can see, we're not all short. I mean, we have our differences of height, and we think it's stereotypical of all Irish Americans.
If I might interject quickly, the university's policy against verbal assault, defamation, and harassment starts off by saying that intolerance and bigotry are antithetical to the values of the university and are unacceptable.
So after this came out, the university said they would ban Lucky Charms. And this was the first video that we really did that really made an impact. And we made other videos at Rutgers. We went and we asked to put the American flags in classrooms. And of course, the dean there said, well, if we allowed you to put the American flag in the classroom, we'd have to allow you to put the Ugandan flag in everything.
Why
And
is this Uganda?
that his statements and the behavior he demonstrated made it on 101.5. So we started to realize that you can actually break news just by making requests of people. And that leads me to the next sort of story, big story that we actually broke. And this involved something that, the gentleman who introduced me said that that the New York Times likes to spike stories and the media likes to ignore things. In 2008, during the election of President Obama, the New York Times spiked a front page story about Acorn.
Right.
I wrote about it in Breakthrough. The reporter for the New York Times was told by her editor to stand down. Says, we don't want to cover this story. And Anita Moncrief, the whistleblower at Acorn at the time, recorded this voicemail or this phone call between a New York Times reporter and the New York Times. So the mainstream media totally did not want to talk about this. And only a madman would have predicted that I, myself, 25 years old at the time, and my colleague, a 20-year-old woman named Hannah Giles, would go spend our own money to investigate and expose Acorn, and in 1 week, shut the entire organization down. But that's exactly what happened, and it truly is extraordinary. It's an extraordinary story, and there's many more stories like it in this book. This is, we drove across the country. I borrowed my grandmother's chinchilla costume coat. It was like a pimp coat thing. And then the girl wore her own costume. This is how she actually dresses in Miami, apparently. And we went around and said we were a pimp and a prostitute, want to start brothel with taxpayer dollars. So this is a pretty good summary of that video. And I'll show you some of it and talk about kind of what happened afterwards.
Of an unlikely duo looking for tax help.
Scenario: a young woman pretending to be a prostitute and a man pretending to run for Congress one day walk into Acorn's Baltimore headquarters
And are promptly shown the door.
Is it against the law in Maryland? Prostitution?
Anything that the government's not getting money from is always against the law. Somebody in here with taxes so they can talk to you. Tell them that you know how you make a name.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Rose Scooby.
That's what there's a code for, okay?
a code for prostitution.
You might have to name it something else. Performance arts, let's see. Independent arts. Your business is a performing arts.
but you are. Okay, so you're not lying, so stop saying,
Got it.
Or you could refer to yourself as a toll booth operator. General contractor. Used vagina salesman. What's remarkable is how unfazed the Acorn people are by this question and situation. This is clearly not the first time they've been hearing this. Oh, you're a prostitute and a pimp. You'd like to work through the tax implications of said relationship. Hey, Tanya, get me Form 7D. But I'm sure Acorn has a line that they won't cross.
There's going to be 13 El Salvadorian girls coming on his house, and they're very young, and we don't want to put them on our books.
Please tell me 13 underage Salvadorian sex slaves is the line.
I'll support the return, you can use them as a dependent.
Okay.
You can use them as a dependent, because they live in the house.
Are you kidding me? Did you hear what they said? Oh, yeah, what's that, 13? Oh, yeah, a hooker's dozen. Yeah, let me, I'm gonna need another phone. By the way, you should try Guatemalans. The shipping charges are half. All right, so this Acorn office has some bad apples. But in Baltimore, I've seen The Wire. The place is dull. You wouldn't see this kind of thing a few miles away at the Acorn office in D.C.?
My girlfriend's a prostitute,
Okay,
and I don't know if
I kind of figured that.
I'm using the money and she's good. You know what I mean?
Right, but with that least action, you don't know where it's coming from. That's what we're trying to tell you.
All right.
We're looking out for you.
Okay, that's D.C. I've seen C-SPAN. It's a hole. That would never happen in New York.
You buy the house, in the backyard, you put a money right in that number, like, well, then you gotta save a soul of yourself, where it is.
Would I, a tin, I put the money in a
And then push it there and there. And put the grass over.
So these videos are released, and we released them one at a time. And the reason we did this was because the media was trying to say that it was an isolated incident each and every time. Well, we released one of them, and then they said it was isolated, and then released another one, they said, well, I guess it's not isolated. So they were caught in a huge lie. So we were engaging in a little bit of asymmetrical warfare, and we were getting them to trip over their own lies. And by the end of this story, the New York Times actually apologized to their readership for not tuning in. So we got the mainstream media to admit that they were wrong. That is truly an extraordinary series of events. In fact, this story prompted Congress to defund Acorn before the New York Times assigned a reporter to the story. We've done other videos into many different programs. One of the things I get asked to investigate a lot is something like Medicaid fraud, Health and Human Services fraud. And we have gone out and investigated welfare fraud. We've investigated Social Security fraud. We've investigated housing and urban development fraud. Here's one video we did. We went into Medicaid offices throughout Ohio, Virginia, and Maine, and said we were Russian mobsters. And we wanted to be eligible for Medicaid assistance, and we deal in illegal drugs. We pimp our sisters as young as 12 years old, and we have $1 million Ferrari sports cars. Will you give us Medicaid?
Come from Russia for Medicaid.
The two men pose as wealthy Russian drug dealers who pimp their sisters as young as 12 years old. They're interested in applying for Medicaid benefits for their ailing father, and they visit county job and family services offices in Franklin, Marion, and Madison counties.
So if we're dealing in just, technically illicit drugs, and if we have those working for us, they're not going to give us trouble about that. They can't.
Ultimately, they did not actually apply for or receive any benefits. But State Job and Family Services spokesman Ben Johnson says the video is troubling.
If somebody comes in and says, I'm a I'm a Russian multimillionaire here illegally dealing drugs. The appropriate response is get out of my office.
Johnson said employees are required to report any suspected child abuse or neglect. It's not clear yet whether that happened in these cases. And at one point, the employee suggests not listing an expensive sports car on the application.
If it's not something registered here, maybe I just wouldn't mention it.
Yeah, that's what
Not that I can say that. You can hear that from me.
Right.
Franklin County Job and Family Services placed one employee on paid administrative leave and issued a statement saying the agency will be revisiting how to appropriately handle suspected criminal activity that's shared during an interview. Job and Family Services officials say had the men actually applied, their fraud would certainly have been exposed through the routine investigations conducted on all applications. Ted Hart, NBC4.
So we did this investigation in 3 states, and it prompted all these workers to be retrained. It prompted workers to get fired. In fact, just a few weeks ago, we did an investigation into this thing called Obama phones. And we showed these phones were given out and sold for drugs. They were sold for Louis Vuitton handbags, spending cash, and it's pretty remarkable. Every time we do these investigations, we expose these workers telling us to commit fraud. Yep. It's just a matter of doing more of these investigations. People feel very hopeless right now, and they don't know how to make a difference, and I say all we have to do is do more of these investigations, because every time we do it, we get the government to react. So, let me show you some other things we did. Actually, we did this locally here in the New York.
We are not afraid.
So what you're looking at right now is we did a fake PSA announcement, and we said that we were members of a anti-gun group, Citizens Against Senseless Violence. It's not, we're being sarcastic, we're not actually serious here, but we're saying that we want to stop senseless violence. We want to stop senseless violence. We want every American, especially these journalists who are anti-gun, to put a sign on their lawn saying their home is proudly gun-free. because gun-free zones are great for children. That's why your home should be gun-free. You don't support guns, do you? And you'd be surprised at some of the responses. We went to some of the homes of the New Jersey Star-Ledger, because I know how wonderful those people are and how much they hate guns. That's why they should put a sign on their lawn saying this home is gun-free. How many people saw this video? A couple people, not everyone.
No guns, no violence. No guns, no crime. No guns, no murder. Guns kill children. Armed cops, not citizens. The police will protect us.
Guns make good people do bad things.
Take all guns from everyone, so no one else is harmed. Anti-gun is pro-America. We are not afraid. Join us.
Tell everyone, your house is completely unprotected.
Tell them this is a gun-free zone. Put a sign in your lawn that says no guns here. We're not afraid. We're defenseless. We are afraid. Join us.
Join us.
Join us. Because there's strength in numbers.
A suburban New York City newspaper is in the middle of a big controversy this morning after it put up online the names and addresses of everyone with a gun permit.
We also know which houses don't have guns.
Since these reporters and editors did not consider it a violation of the privacy and safety of others to reveal which homes have guns and which homes don't, we went to see which of them would be willing to put up a sign publicly declaring their homes to be gun-free zones. While we didn't find any members of the media with the strength of their convictions, we did find quite a few guns, and some good explanations for why they might be necessary.
To really know the people will kind of lead by example and look at community spots. And advertise themselves as proudly, this home is proudly gun-free. Can we put you down for a sign? In this neighborhood, nobody puts out stuff like that. They actually published a list of all of the gun owners.
We're just doing the same thing, it's just people that don't.
The opposite.
It's just the opposite. So I mean, what's the difference, really?
I do believe in it, but I think I'll pass on that. All right, thank you.
Hi.
We're with Citizens Against Senseless Violence. Is this?
I'm sorry, I can't help. Good luck.
No. Is
You don't care about children?
Is this? Well, we're just trying to get people to notice and to see these.
Other reasons why people don't
Do you have guns? I agree with you, and I am on your side on this, but I'm just wondering if that's not an invitation to somebody with a gun.
This is the Star Ledger columnist Bob Braun. For the record, I've sued the New Jersey Star Ledger for defamation, and what I'm allowed to tell you is that the parties have agreed amicably to resolve the situation. So I've been using the proceeds of that amicable resolution to fund more videos. Anyways, what's remarkable about this conversation with Mr. Braun is that Mr. Braun is a vehement anti-gun journalist who is unknowingly to himself making very much anti-gun free zone arguments when confronted with the truth. And that's what's so great about what we do at Project Veritas. We call it cinema verite, veritas, Latin for truth. We put people in situations where they're forced to admit things that they would otherwise never admit. And now he's about to admit that gun-free zones are bad because that would be an invitation for a burglar to come to his house.
Exactly.
There you go.
I don't know, I want to think about it. I agree with you, but I'm not sure about the sign. For the purposes that you said.
But you're concerned that if you say you're gun-free, somebody with a gun's going to come and...
I think, yeah.
That puts sides out. The problem in this town is, somebody driving by around here might think it's an invitation to come marching. Well, if it said Citizens Against Senseless Violence, without this home is proudly gun-free, I would put the sign up.
Yeah.
I agree with you in terms of gun control.
I'm sorry, are you the same one that's on TV?
Yeah.
And so then we can assume that you're not a gun owner yourself and there are no guns there.
No, I'm not again.
What are the chances we could get something like on this door? I notice it's all like a glass door in the front, something that just says, this building proudly gun-free or something like that.
That I'd have to talk to my neighbors. I honestly don't know what they feel on this issue.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, good luck, you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, we're Citizens Against Senseless Violence. We're going around. This home is proudly gun-free. What does that mean? Oh, you're against guns?
Yes.
You're against guns. I'm not. They put us down on the internet, and they put my wife's name by mistake.
You believe that?
They're against guns.
You're against guns.
Well, I said I'm not.
So that, as you can see, sometimes you get footage you didn't expect to get, and that was the case. But this is real, investigative journalism. It's really important that we expose these issues because even people who say they disagree with some of you are agreeing with you when they're confronted with the truth. One of the biggest themes of this book, Breakthrough, is our work on exposing voter fraud. Last year we did a dozen videos in states across the country, and as a result of our work, we showed dead people's ballots offered out to strangers. We showed celebrities' ballots offered out to strangers. We showed Eric Holder's ballot offered out to a complete stranger. We showed Obama campaign directors telling us to vote twice. We showed Congressman field director telling us to vote multiple times. And it's just truly extraordinary. I'm going to show you two videos. The first video really just rocked the presidential primary. This was a video in New Hampshire showing dead people's ballots given out to total strangers.
Of people at the New Hampshire primary, people using the names of the dead on purpose to get a ballot and to prove a point. Hi, everybody. Maria Stefanos.
And I'm Mark Ockenham. Tonight, it's such a concern. Ted Daniel here now with the story. Ted, Mark and Maria, regardless of what people think of the tactics here, this is certainly an eye-opening investigation. It was conducted by conservative and controversial activist James O'Keefe and his group, Project Veritas. You may remember O'Keefe. He's the guy who made headlines dressing up as a pimp to expose problems at Acorn. On primary day, his people took undercover cameras and the names of the dead to polling places in New Hampshire.
Democratic ballot. Democratic ballot.
State law says you don't need an ID to vote in New Hampshire. And this video appears to show you may not need a pulse either. The self-described watchdog group, Project Veritas, claims it gave the names of dead people at more than a dozen polling places.
Here we are. George F. at St. James Place. Okay, and you're a registered Democrat.
That's the registration.
Okay, so here's the Democratic ballot, and the pens are in the booth.
According to Project Veritas, they received ballots every time except one, when a poll worker actually knew the dead person. James O'Keefe says this shows just how easy it is for someone in New Hampshire to commit voter fraud.
In New Hampshire, I feel like this is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the voting system. At the very least, they should remove all of the deceased people from the voter registration logs. Oh, that's my ID in the car.
You don't need it.
I don't need ID.
Before you die, this is New Hampshire. No way to need it.
O'Keefe says his so-called citizen journalists did not commit any crimes because none of them ever actually voted. The New Hampshire State Attorney General is now investigating the integrity of the voting process and the tactics O'Keefe and Project Veritas used.
So after this video came out, the state of New Hampshire passed voter ID laws citing this video. And what was truly remarkable about it is that the governor of the state actually vetoed that legislation, but the video was so powerful that the citizens in the state legislature actually passed the bill by such overwhelming majorities that it overrode the governor's veto. I have never lobbied anyone. I've never asked them to change the law. All I do is take my camera, go into the poll, and show what happens. And what happens is so powerful that it gets people to outrage. And you think about all the money and time people spend trying to change laws, trying to get people elected. But the power of video, just a YouTube video, that's all this was. Now it comes at a price, and that's what this book Breakthrough is all about. Because I did that, you can imagine I made some pretty powerful enemies. Not only statewide, but federally. There's a man in New Hampshire, I cannot make this up. The guy works in the Department of Justice in New Hampshire. His name, he's the Associate Attorney General of the state. His name is Richard Head. Like Dickhead. Richard Head tried to indict me. He sent, in the middle of the night, he sent his colleagues in the Department of Justice there in New Hampshire to the home of my colleagues who did this, basically terrorizing them in the middle of the night. And then he actually worked with Eric Holder's Justice Department to try to work with the FBI to indict me. While the Boston people were trying to do terrorism in Massachusetts, the 7 FBI agents, instead of actually trying to stop them, were trying to stop me. It's unbelievable. And I actually confronted Dickhead a few weeks ago. I actually asked him to sign a copy of the book. There's a chapter called The Rise of Richard Head. He actually looks like a Richard Head. So, anyways, he wouldn't sign the book, but it's a really incredible story, very exciting read. A book reads more like a political thriller than it does a typical political book. So anyways, we did this a number of times across the country. We went to Vermont. We went to Minnesota. We even went to Washington, D.C. And we went to, by the way, I call myself a community organizer. I guess it's because I consider what I do, Saul Alinsky has had quite an effect on us. And we've started to apply Alinsky's tactics. In fact, when the Acorn thing happened, Ben Jealous actually said we're being out-Alinsky'ited by the anti-Alinskyites.
Oh, darn.
So here we go. So Washington, D.C., we walk into Eric Kohler's poll location, and we say, hey, do you have Eric Holder on your list?
You have more than a prayer of finding out if Eric Holder votes at this Nebraska Avenue church. Just ask.
Do you have an Eric Holder?
The poll watcher's answer last Tuesday might dent the Attorney General's ego.
H-O-L-T-E-R.
The actor confirms the address.
I'm there.
I actually forgot my ID.
You don't need it, sorry.
I left it in the car.
As long as you're in here, you're on our list, and that's who you say you are, okay?
You sign into that poll book, and your signature serves as the verification that you are who you say you are.
Rather than sign and commit a crime punishable by up to $10,000 in fines and 5 years in prison, the actor left and didn't vote. The video sting is meant to refute Holder's contention that
Those on all sides of this debate have acknowledged that in-person voting fraud is uncommon.
And an official in Holder's Justice Department told 9 News Now it is no coincidence that these so-called examples of rampant voter fraud consistently turn out to be manufactured ones. The issue of voter fraud divides Republicans who in general say they support ID requirements to stop fraud, and Democrats who argue it disenfranchises eligible voters who don't have ID.
So this is our video. We do a cross-reference of all the registered voters in Washington, D.C., and I see on the list, it says Eric H. Holder. That can't be the Eric Holder, can it? Well, it was. And notice how when we walk in there, we didn't say, can I vote in Eric, we didn't lie about who we were. We kind of led them to believe we were Eric Holder without actually saying so. We said, do you have Eric Holder on that list of people who vote? And they said, here you go, Mr. Holder. So notice the video and watch at the end how I use the Rihanna music.
There.
I actually forgot my ID.
You don't need it, sorry.
I left it in the car.
As long as you're in here, you're on our list, and that's who you say you are, okay?
I would feel more comfortable if I just had my IDs. All right, if I go get a car. I'll be back faster than you can say furious.
We're not going anywhere.
You can only imagine how angry that must have made the Attorney General. But the Department of Justice actually responded to us. They actually issued a press release saying that this is all manufactured outrage. And every time we do these videos, we always get the government to respond to us. And the gentleman who's introducing me said, "Oh, what is journalism today?" Journalism is getting the government to respond to you, not responding to the government. And I think the issue I have with a lot of people in something like the Tea Party is they're always talking about government. Now, you know that you're really making a difference when you get the government to talk about you. And that's what journalism ought to do. It ought to hold them accountable, but it comes at a price. It comes at a price. And we have been investigated. I have been audited. I was even placed on probation for something I didn't do. It's a really crazy story. But let me show you maybe one or two other videos. And then I'll open up a little bit. Let's see here. Oh, this one. This one is actually another kind of local, semi-local story, one of my favorites. We want
to fill the trough of greedy union.
We want to investigate labor unions. And because a lot of people say, oh, you should do something with the makeshift work, where they just sort of repair things, but they don't actually need to be repaired. So I was talking to the late Andrew Breitbart, and he said, why don't you start a company where you say you want to dig holes and refill them? And we said, that's a good idea. So we called it Earth Supply and Renewal. Get it? So we did this company, and let me just pull it up here again. Here we go. Now this story was pretty good. In fact, it was so good that no one in the American media wanted to cover it. This is becoming a pattern, by the way. Our stories, now they're starting to ignore us, and we get covered by the Canadian media out of Ottawa, Canada. But no one in New York wanted to cover this story. And the reason they didn't want to cover it is not because it's inaccurate, or it's because it's very accurate and very true. And they do not want to give any credibility or any coverage to something that's very damning. So check this out. Earth Supply and Renewal. Again, fake PSA announcement. I'm creating this fictitious advertisement for Earth Supply and Renewal, and then I meet with the union officials, and they tell me that they can give me taxpayer funding to dig holes and refill them.
Fill the trough of greedy unions. Don't believe it? A conservative activist has proven it. Check this out.
We're dedicated to providing Americans with jobs and getting this economy back on track. That's why we're partnering with public officials and the unemployed to provide sustainable economic development and give hope for the future of America's working class. So what exactly do we do at Earth Supply? I'm glad you asked. Our jobs are shovel-ready, literally. First, our excavation specialists insert their shovels into the ground and remove the soil. This presents the problem of an existing hole in the earth. At Earth Supply, we train professional backfillers to renew the soil in place of the existing hole, restoring the earth to its original condition. Some folks say we're just digging ditches and filling them back up again. But it's about more than that. It's about jobs.
In reality, that's a company O'Keefe created to bait the unions. And what a catch he got. Check this out.
Do both you guys work for Earth Supply and Renewal, right?
That's correct. We've just been digging the ditches. Then we dig the ditch, we take the dirt, and we actually just take the dirt and put it right back in the ground.
It sounds like that, it almost is exactly the same as where we were with Green Jobs Renew York.
So, and you guys are really cool with that, like helping us find public funds, even if it's just, what we do is just, hey, there's some dirt to dig and put it back in the hole.
People are willing to give you money. They're willing to give you the money, that's fine. We're doing every, the Green Jobs Renew York between us, a lot of it's bullshit. A lot of that's going for stuff that.
Yeah. Oh, really? Like,
we're talking about.
Like what?
Yeah, even if it's, like you said, bullshit, there's people willing to subsidize bullshit.
Well, I think the key thing is even if it's bullshit, I think as long as people are working, that's not bullshit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're doing a service. Right. Whether you're Mitt Romney or you're Barack Obama, it's all about jobs, economy, and getting people to work.
Mm-hmm.
So at least we're doing that.
Yeah.
You just want to get the money. Then you figure out afterwards. We can figure out the other stuff. Well, you're like the WPA. Yeah. Yeah, in the 1930s.
Wait, how so?
Well, Roosevelt did that.
Right.
They dug the roads up, put them back.
Yeah.
But
Well, they got us out of the Great Depression.
Temporarily, it was good thing.
Yeah, that's not something out of The Sopranos. It's some bad B movie. Reality.
So yeah, you can imagine that the media didn't want to talk about that very much, but that really was one of my favorites because it really talked about some very economic issues and in a very easy to understand way. In fact, most people watch that and think it's outrageous. And all the things that we do prompt these reactions and prompt these government officials to respond just by showing the reality of things. And I'm going to show you one more, tape here. We actually released a tape, actually let me show you this one here, where we actually went to Houston, Texas during the course of the election, and we discovered President Obama's re-election director there in Texas telling us that we can vote absentee ballot in Florida and then also vote in Texas, which is a felony to vote twice. But because Texas is not a swing state and Florida is, this director gave our reporter a ballot to vote twice.
His Organizing for America Houston office. The undercover investigator wearing a hidden camera tells a worker identified as Regional Field Director Stephanie Caballero that she's registered to vote in Texas but could also vote absentee in Florida. She wants the paperwork to get it done.
If I have an opportunity to make my voice heard, I'm gonna make my vote twice. I'm gonna make it heard twice. So.
Okay.
Caballero does encourage the woman to vote in Florida, where the swing state ballot may prove more valuable to the Obama campaign, and admits voting multiple times is not her expertise. But she does nothing to stand in the woman's way.
Oh my God, this is so funny. It's cool though.
So she gives her the absentee ballot to vote twice, and then what happens after that is there's the reaction, as we call it, to what happened. And there's a segment here where.
But late this afternoon, the left-leaning website Talking Points memo quoted a DNC spokeswoman as saying Stephanie Caballero has been fired.
She was fired, but it was covered by a little blog, got on Drudge. employee fired, and they immediately throw these people under the bus. But as a result of this investigation, and we only did this a couple times, they actually shut the entire Texas
battleground states and to
down.
collect donations, but today you can see it is all locked up.
I'm disappointed we're not working. I want to be working for the campaign.
So just exposing this whole voting fraud thing, people resign, offices get shut down. Can you imagine if I did this 150 times? I mean, I did this like once, twice. I'm going to show you the other video we did just now, but I mean, really what this is about is it's about doing more of it. I'm trying to convince people that this is something worth doing to begin with, and now that you're on the same page as me, the next step is to do a lot of it, is to expose everything. And I think if we do that, I think we'll make a difference. So let me show you, this is actually our other video, prompted... So, you know, at the end of the, not to spoil the book, but by the end of the book, like, our video actually prompts the chairwoman of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, to be grilled by, of all people, Soledad O'Brien on CNN. I mean, when I saw this, oh, they're gonna rake me over the coals, say something about me. But no, she was literally grilling Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She was throwing Debbie Wasserman Schultz under the bus because the video we captured was a congressman's son telling us to vote multiple times, and he resigned. So, little clip here of where she's grilling Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
The man we saw in that video released a statement to the Washington Post. I'm going to read it, which is, at no point, he says, did I take this person seriously. He struck me as being unstable and joking, and for only that reason did I humor him. In hindsight, I should have immediately walked away, making it clear that there's no place in the electoral process for even the suggestion of illegal behavior, joking or not. And his father said this: Patrick is well-liked and a well-respected member of the campaign team. This incident, however, was clearly an error in judgment. The campaign has accepted Patrick's resignation, effective immediately.
So our videos showing these people telling us to vote twice prompted this guy to resign, and after this video came out, the state of Virginia passed another voter ID law citing this video because of this guy's statements. So as a result of our work last year, 6 states changed their laws to institute voter ID because of these videos telling you to vote twice. And just to show you that, yes, while the media may hate us very, very, very much, sometimes even the mainstream media is forced to acknowledge someone who's actually making a difference. And I have some, here we go, Rachel Maddow, even a broken clock is right twice a day. I'll take the compliments where I can get them. What else? Oh yeah. Slate. Quote, this is a fact and it will piss off liberals, but James O'Keefe has had more of an impact on the 2012 election than any other journalist, unquote. By the way, I put that in the jacket of the book. So I sent Mr. Weigel I let him know that Simon & Schuster was using his quote. This is really bizarre. Salon.com, they're really nasty. James O'Keefe does something right. We never thought we'd see the day, but his video is actually legit. So we have survived this incredible experience. I have been indicted, incarcerated, placed on probation, audited. My family's been harassed by federal agents. I'm probably missing 100,000 things, but I've been through so much crap. But by the end of this book, we actually have these mainstream media publications praising us. Why? Because of cinema verite, because of the truth, because of reality, because we get results, because we're making a difference. And these Woodward and Bernstein people, who are still stuck in the 1970s, and I can't believe they're still playing Richard Nixon specials on CNN. They need to get with the times. They need to start doing investigative reporting. We're doing it at Project Veritas. And my message to you is you can make a difference. You can make a difference. You can have an impact if you're willing to endure what they throw at you. It's a price you have to pay. It's a price worth paying. It's very exciting to read about and break through, and that's what I'm all about. And I'd be happy to take your questions.